These towns didn't die, they were drowned on purpose, and they keep coming back. Between 1940 and 1970, California underwent one of the most aggressive engineering campaigns in modern history. To fuel a booming post-war population and feed a rapidly expanding agricultural empire, state and federal planners looked to the wild rivers running off the Sierra Nevada. The solution was the Central Valley Project, a massive, interconnected network of concrete and canals administered by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. During this mid-century build-out, workers constructed more than 30 major dams, higher than 200 feet. This monumental effort added over 4 million acre-feet of new water storage capacity to the state's infrastructure. The rationale behind these projects was clear and threefold. Capture seasonal mountain runoff for year-round water storage, divert flows to irrigate millions of acres of parched valley farmland, and protect downstream cities from devastating seasonal floods. But creating these massive reservoirs required vast expanses of land. Valleys that had held families, schools, and gold rush history for generations were suddenly redefined as empty basins waiting to be drowned. The state used its power of eminent domain to acquire entire communities, systematically clearing away homes, storefronts, and even pioneer graves. It was an intentional, calculated trade-off. Downstream valleys gained water security and economic growth, paid for by the permanent erasure of the settlements upstream. This erasure was not a sudden catastrophe, but a slow, orderly march of paperwork and legal decrees. Long before the first concrete was poured, government offices cataloged every home, orchard, and family plot slated for destruction. Relocation was never an afterthought. It was engineered into the project budgets from the very beginning. Land acquisition agents arrived carrying condemnation notices, using the cold authority of eminent domain to purchase entire family legacies by the acre. Public hearings were held, but the outcomes were already decided. Families signed the deeds, packed their belongings, and watched as work crews systematically dismantled their historic timber homes. Even the dead were scheduled for removal, with court orders authorizing the exhumation of pioneer cemeteries to clear the valley floors. These bureaucratic procedures reduced living communities to sterile, empty basins. Beneath the official signatures lay a quiet, impending silence, waiting for the rising waters to claim what paper had already condemned. The waters first claimed Mormon Island. This former gold rush hub along the American River once swelled to 2,500 residents by 1853. Its busy streets lined with hotels, blacksmith shops, saloons, and family homes. That pioneer era ended in 1955, when the gates of Folsom Dam closed, creating Folsom Lake, California's 9th largest reservoir. Today, when severe droughts drop the waterline, the parched lakebed yields the ghosts of Mormon Island, revealing stone foundations, old cellar pits, and collapsed walls baked dry by the sun. Further north, a different kind of industry met the same quiet fate. Kennett was a booming copper mining town, home to 1,200 residents by 1910. It was a rugged mountain community of miners, rail workers, and families, built around massive industrial smelters that once produced millions of pounds of copper. But in 1945, the completion of Shasta Dam drowned Kennett under Shasta Lake, the largest reservoir in the state. Today, Kennett lies hundreds of feet beneath the surface. When severe droughts drop the lake's elevation, the old street grids and even a rusted bank vault occasionally reappear on the dry, cracked shoreline. This systematic drowning of foothill history soon expanded across the Sierra Nevada. In 1968, the filling of Lake Oroville claimed 2 more historic communities in a single stroke. Bidwell Bar, a prosperous gold rush settlement once famous for its historic suspension bridge, vanished beneath the rising waters. Nearby, the old town of Cherokee met the exact same fate, its historic footprints sealed under the massive reservoir. As the lake level fluctuates with the seasons, these sunken foothill towns emerge from the mud, serving as silent, eerie monuments to the communities sacrificed for California's water infrastructure. Further south, along the Tuolumne River, the gold mining settlement of Jacksonville was cleared for inundation. Once one of the largest towns on the Mother Lode, founded in 1849, it supported hundreds of residents with a bustling main street, shops, and active mines. That history ended in the late 1960s when workers cleared the valley floor for the new Don Pedro Dam, drowning the historic town site beneath the deep waters of Don Pedro Reservoir. To the west, in Napa County, the agricultural community of Monticello lay nestled within the fertile Berryessa Valley. For over a century, families farmed the orchards and rich fields of this quiet basin. In 1957, the completion of the Monticello Dam submerged the entire town beneath Lake Berryessa, displacing hundreds of residents and swallowing thousands of acres of prime agricultural land. The expansion of the state's water system continued to claim historic landmarks throughout the Gold Country. By 1978, the rising waters of New Melanese Lake overtook the old town of Melanese, a historic mining hub that had weathered the boom and bust cycles of the frontier. Beneath the very same reservoir, the historic crossing of Robinson Ferry vanished, its riverbanks and stone walls forever sealed beneath the massive pool. Each settlement was systematically disassembled, traded for the promise of downstream irrigation and flood control. In the path of the rising waters, work crews carried out the physical erasure of the remaining valley communities. In Mariposa County, the historic mountain transit hub of Bagby was entirely dismantled, its structures cleared away before Lake McClure drowned the valley floor in 1970. To the northwest, the old Mendocino town site was stripped of its buildings, leaving only bare earth before the valley was flooded to create Lake Mendocino in 1958. The most absolute demolition occurred along the Kern River. The settlement of Whiskey Flat, established in 1860 and later renamed Kernville, had preserved its frontier streets so perfectly that Hollywood used the town as the backdrop for the 1939 John Wayne classic, Stagecoach. That historic wooden fabric was deemed a hazard for the incoming reservoir. Rather than letting the buildings decay naturally underwater, the United States Army Corps of Engineers ordered their complete destruction. Demolition crews systematically planted dynamite in the foundations of the schoolhouse, the local jail, the church, and the family homes, reducing the entire pioneer settlement to piles of splintered timber and rubble. When Lake Isabella rose to its final pool in 1953, the water did not submerge a standing community, but rather a silent graveyard of pulverized concrete, baked mud, and shattered ruins. The engineering campaign of the mid-20th century spared no corner of the state, leaving a ledger of smaller, quiet sacrifices that proved this erasure was systemic rather than exceptional. In the northern mountains of Plumas County, Allamore Village was cleared and lost to Lake Allamore in 1965. Its historic irrigation canals and stone foundations sealed beneath the rising mountain pool. Farther south, in the dry valleys of San Diego County, the Henshaw settlement met a similar end. In 1976, the closing of Henshaw Dam covered the historic ranching outpost under Henshaw Lake, burying old roadbeds and stone boundary walls that had marked cattle ranching territories since the pioneer era. The continuous demand for water storage claimed settlements throughout the coastal hills and inland valleys. In 1972, the residents of San Antonio Village in Alameda County watched the rising waters of the San Antonio Reservoir flood their valley, submerging house footprints, family orchards, and historic oak groves under a domestic water supply. Decades later, long after the classic dam-building era had ended, the same cold logic applied. In 1999, The Los Vaqueros farmstead in Contra Costa County was systematically dismantled and overtaken. Its historic agricultural structures and centuries-old homesteads drowned beneath the Los Vaqueros Reservoir to supply the expanding suburbs of the San Francisco Bay Area. Families were given standard condemnation payouts, packed their belongings, and relocated to nearby towns, leaving their history to be sealed by the rising tides. Each of these smaller sites, Alamore, Henshaw, San Antonio, and Los Vaqueros, stands as concrete evidence of a coordinated statewide system. These were not communities that faded because of economic decline or natural decay. They were active, functioning places deliberately erased to build the massive network that sustains modern California. The individual names of these settlements often escape the history books, yet their collective loss represents thousands of acres of productive land, family legacies, and local history permanently traded for water security. Beyond the borders of California, a broader pattern of deliberate inundation carved a similar story of loss across the arid expanses of the American West. Just across the state line in Nevada, the remnants of St. Thomas offer a clear parallel. Established in 1865 as a Mormon settlement, the frontier outpost was abandoned twice, first during an 1871 state line dispute and permanently in 1938. That year, the rising waters of Lake Mead, backed up behind the newly completed Hoover Dam, slowly swallowed the valley. Families packed their belongings, abandoned their brick homes, and watched the desert river claim their streets. Today, as Colorado River reservoirs drop to historic lows, St. Thomas regularly emerges from the mud. Its chalky foundations, chimneys, and dead tree stumps stand exposed under the desert sun, a physical ledger of mid-century water engineering. This ghost town serves as a quiet reminder of how the search for water in a dry land requires burying the past. As these ruins bake in the desert heat, they mirror the thousands of submerged acres in California, where similar choices were made to fuel a growing empire. When water levels drop across California's massive reservoirs, a quiet and unsettling transformation begins. The receding shorelines pull back, turning these deep basins into temporary maps of erased settlements. What was once hidden under hundreds of feet of water dries under the sun, exposing the cold geometry of a buried era. First come the foundations. Flat concrete slabs arranged in neat, orderly grids trace where family homes once stood. As the mud dries and cracks, other structures reappear from the sediment. Cobbled streets, built to withstand the traffic of horses and early transport, run straight through the silt. Long dormant roadbeds cut through the barren terrain, leading to nowhere. Standing on these dry reservoir bottoms, it is possible to walk the pathways of communities that officially ceased to exist decades ago. The details of daily life remain preserved in the clay. Here, a stone chimney stands alone, the timber house it once heated long since cleared away. There, low cellar walls and hand-laid stone wells mark the boundaries of forgotten yards. Even the old graves, missed during the hurried relocations, slowly break through the mud. The dry air bakes these artifacts, keeping them locked in time until the next wet cycle covers them again. This exposure reveals the lasting toll of inundation. The natural river channels have been permanently altered, their banks covered in heavy layers of gray sediment. Submerged riparian lands, once rich with oaks and river vegetation, are replaced by a stark, silent floor of cracked earth and drowned tree stumps. This recurring resurfacing is not a historical novelty or a curiosity. It is a physical marker of modern climate pressure, a quiet warning written in concrete and stone, reminding us of the permanent sacrifices made to build a dry empire. Behind the concrete walls of the dams lay thousands of individual lives, quietly cataloged in yellowing folders. County courthouse basements still hold the physical remnants of this transition. signed deeds, certified condemnation notices, and property maps marked with cold red ink. Landowners received official letters declaring their family homesteads as parcels within future reservoir basins, giving them a set number of days to salvage what they could before the rising waters arrived. Families dismantled their own barns, gathering timber to build elsewhere, while others left behind orchards that had produced fruit for generations. Moving was not a matter of simply packing boxes. Neighbors who had lived side by side for 50 years scattered to different counties, permanently dissolving communities that had existed since the gold rush. The disruption extended even to the dead. Government agencies coordinated the systematic exhumation of historic cemeteries to clear the valley floors. In Napa County alone, workers exhumed approximately 300 graves from the Monticello Cemetery, cataloging names, moving headstones, and reinterring the remains on higher ground. Similar operations took place across El Dorado and Kern counties, where pioneer burial plots were quietly moved to clear the way for Folsom and Isabella Lakes. These cemetery transfers permanently severed the connection between family history and the land itself. When the water level drops today, the empty spaces left behind on the dry lake beds remain as silent markers of a coordinated, bureaucratic erasure. As California's climate patterns intensify, these resurfacing ruins are no longer just relics of a forgotten past. They are quiet, structural warnings of our future. Each exposed foundation reveals the fragile bargain we made for progress and the heavy price of an engineered landscape. Thank you for watching. Share your thoughts on these lost towns in the comments below.